Order in the court! Order in the court!
It's that time again. 31 days, 31 moons. It's Halloween Horrorfest Spooktacular!
Thank you, Your Honor. Distinguished members of the jury, I'd like to start by thanking you for your service. It's a difficult and important civic duty to serve on this panel as you have today, especially after having witnessed what you have for the last hour and a half. An hour and 25 minutes has never felt more like a lifetime. And while in the grand scheme of things, an hour and 25 minutes doesn't constitute more than a mere fraction of your life, a percent of your overall time spent on this earth, it is nonetheless significant in what it has taken away from you. 85 minutes of watching Clint Howard bare knuckle a bucket of melting goo, rather than spending it with your children. 85 minutes of watching a detective waltz through what is ostensibly an insane asylum with a malaise akin to desperate boredom, rather than playing fetch with your dog, or blowing dandelions as young lovers entwined in the madness of puberty. Hell, 85 minutes of staring at scoops of mashed potatoes parading as ice cream, instead of spending that time eating real ice cream. These minutes were few, but precious. Precious and wasted. But for all the effort that I can expend talking about the faults of the 1995 slasher film Ice Cream Man, of which there are many, I feel it important to remind you that this film is not on trial. This buffoonery, masquerading as a horror film designed for all ages and simultaneously absolutely no one, it's not on trial. No. This inept goiter of a film directed by Norman Apstein, it's not the defendant, not the culprit. This puspin of regret is, in fact, a victim of a merciless crime. That crime? Inexplicable copyright infringement. And the culprit? Why, none other than the soundtrack from the 1997 JRPG Final Fantasy VII, composed by Nobuo Uematsu. Let's review the evidence, shall we? Yes, ma'am.
I have a brother that was charged with driving under the influence.
I have no idea what that means. You've heard the music from Ice Cream Man. At least, what is purportedly considered to be music, among the cacophonous clamoring of multiple synthesized tracks playing at the same time. While wholly unpleasant and, frankly, likely grounds for an international armistice, it is nonetheless first in time to the subsequent works of Mr. Uematsu. This terrible, awful, no good, very bad soundtrack, which deserves to be heard outside of no one but the deepest sinners in outer darkness, came out in 1995. Just in time for a certain composer working for a certain Japanese video game developer to write a certain soundtrack for a certain video game. And whether intentionally or not, copy nearly wholesale only 2 years later. Case in point, recall this refrain from the film.
All right, I'll meet you in the car.
Now I know, the sound is terrible, but the bailiff will have gauze to help contain the excess blood from your ears. But I assure you, this pain is necessary to recollect the similarity in the infringing piece. Exhibit A. But hey, coincidences happen, right? I mean, every song has already been written. I'm pretty sure that's what Paul Ringo of the Bee Gees said, but not twice. No. What happens when one song becomes two in an act of betrayal against God himself? I remind you of this regrettable refrain. An awful sensation, to be sure. But if it was so awful, then just why did it inspire no less than 2 distinct tracks from Mr. Uematsu's supposed magnum opus? Exhibit B. Exhibit C. I don't envy you. This is a hard decision. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. Justice demands that we take this seriously. Justice sometimes demands that we set aside our personal sense of morality, demands that we set aside who we are in pursuit of what is right rather than just what feels right. Ice Cream Man, in the most legal of terms, sucks balls. It sucks massive balls. It sucks the balls of every man, woman, non-binary, and non-human entity in existence or which will ever come into existence. But beneath that pile of absolute suck comes one inescapable truth: that Richard Lyon's inexcusable cultural genocide that was the Ice Cream Man soundtrack came first in time. And that Nobuo Uematsu chose years later to write music that was simply too similar. This similarity is without justification, whether morally, legally, or spiritually. The verdict is clear. Nobuo Uematsu's Final Fantasy VII soundtrack is guilty of inexplicably copying certain refrains from the Ice Cream Man soundtrack from 1995. The sentence: death by ice cream machine. Thank you. Godspeed.